Okay, we don't have only one preacher. We have a special Sunday today. We're giving feedback on a whole lot of things. We had a mission Sunday last Sunday. Who of you guys went somewhere? Yeah, good stuff. Half the church at least. And we really want to share with you what God did in our hearts and what happened. But before that, we have the youth who went on one conference. And like you can hear, they really want to give us some feedback on that. So we're going to start off with the video of the one conference, their feedback, and then hear some short
we've arrived.
testimonies from them.
About 20 minutes early before registration. There's our 14 kids. It's like the third day of one conference, third day of games, and guess who's up in the front there? Our boy David!
For the second time he's up there.
Go boy, you got this.
What? This is day 2, and I just woke up at 2 something or 1. I think I woke up at 1. Yeah, we woke up at 1. The boys are waking up. Josh doesn't want to wake up, even though I'm trying to wake him up. Yeah, somebody's busy with the piano. So yeah, this is what's popping.
Okay, we've arrived.
Hello. Okay, I'm not supposed to be up here alone, but clearly I've been deserted. But it's okay. So I was asked to give feedback on the one conference, and at first I made this pros and cons list like in my notes app because I had a lot of things to complain about. But while I was making it, I realized that it wasn't really about my physical experience there or what I enjoyed with the bathrooms and the accommodation, it won't help in any way, and it's kind of irrelevant to what really happened at one conference. So the feedback I'm going to give you is what really touched my heart during one conference and the experience that I had, so just a pros list, I guess. The first thing was that I'm not a shy person, but I'm not a fan of socializing for an extended period of time. And I was really pushed to my limit there, because if you've seen in the videos, that place was like COVID never existed to begin with. And every time people would go down to the stage and start jumping there, I would just stay in my seats at the top and be like, yeah, you guys do your thing, but I'm going to stay here. And even besides that, there were so many people everywhere all the time. And I even told my friends, I was like, if I turn my head and I see a new face again, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. But at the end of the day, I really met some amazing people. I made some new friends. And even if it's people that I'll never see again, I got to pray with people. I got to worship next to people that I've never met before. And that was the one big point of one conference, was the worship there was just really, you could feel God's presence in the room. when you look around and all you can hear is the voice of everyone else around you worshiping, you know that God is doing something there. And especially for me, I feel like it was really a very humbling experience because I didn't go there with, I don't think I was in the right, my heart was in the right place when I went there because I didn't want to be there to begin with. So I didn't prepare my heart to go there. And when I got there, the first thing was that they have a big stage and they have the lights and the smoke machines and the performances and the songs and everything is just, clearly they've prepared for it. But I didn't want to be there, so I was just like, they think they're like so much better than everyone else because they have smoke machines and people are doing cartwheels on the stage. I don't want to be here. And God really humbled me because I thought that the essence of it was the performance. And then I think on the second or third day, there was load shedding during worship and during one of the sessions. And when I say I got humbled, because when you looked around in the room, nobody cared that there was load shedding. The worship continued without any sound effects, without the smoke machines. And silly me, who was complaining for 2 days straight, I was in tears on my knees during the worship. And the other highlight that I had was the person that I met there and I was praying for, I think was on the second to last day. And I wasn't, well, I have prayed for people before, but this is a small church and everyone knows everyone. But you turn around and you see someone in tears behind you and she doesn't know you and you don't know her. And I turned back, I looked back at her twice and she looked at me, she saw me looking at her and clearly she was hoping that I would just mind my business. But unfortunately, I couldn't mind my business. After I had my own encounter with God, I wasn't going to leave her alone. So I turned back to her and I'm like, can I pray for you? And then she's looking at me and she's just like, okay, fine. I get up to her and I ask her, do you want me to just pray in general or do you have something on your heart you want to share with me? I was hoping she would say something in general, but she didn't. She told me, she really shared what was on her heart and it was just so, I won't say heartbreaking, but clearly she had a lot going on in her life. And I think part of being a good Christian and of learning to love other people is first to not pray for them from a place of knowing better or having been in the situation that they've been in. So I know already her problem had to do with a clinical condition. And obviously, what's the odds in 1 in a million that we'll have the same clinical condition? It's practically zero. I have never been through what she's been through, but I have my own story with my family and stuff when it comes to the hospital and stuff. And when I was praying for her, I was just praying for strength, and I was praying that God will just overcome her and give her like the bravery that she needs. And I also prayed for her to find people that love her and that can hold her up when she feels like she's down. And when we were praying, when I was done praying, she was like, thank you so much. This is the best prayer I've heard in like 5 years. Because everyone is always praying for my healing and to be brave and always saying that this is for a reason. God is putting you through all this for a reason. But that's not what you need to hear when you're going through those things. And when we were done praying, we went through a crying session and we were sitting on the floor and she was just telling me about her life. And I made a friend. I didn't make someone that I was going to disciple or someone who was going to disciple me. I just made a friend, and I still have her number to this day. And the last thing that I had for myself, because for the most part, the One Conference was also a great time for me to bond with my youth. I got to see them in the morning, which is interesting. I'm not going to say names, but some of the girls, yeah, when it's super early, like before 6 o'clock, she will walk from one point to the other without looking at anyone, with her eyes closed, all the way to the bathroom, and that's very impressive. But besides that, I also think that I went to the One Conference as a youth leader, so I wasn't going there with the intention of receiving anything for myself. I was more in the mindset of taking care of the kids, making sure that they're having a good time, having a good experience. But when I went there, there was one person who was preaching, and they were talking about what it means to be a leader and what it means to give out to people. And the other part of it is to receive from people as well. If you're always giving, you're going to be giving from an empty pot. And at the end of the day, you're going to be drained and you're going to start hating what you're doing. One day I'm going to wake up and it's day 4 of One Conference. I'm tired. I'm looking at the kids next to me. I just want to put a pillow over their head and like choke them to death. But when I was there, we also got to receive, not just from other people, but also hear from God. The one amazing thing was I was speaking to this other person that I met during one conference. After the preacher had said that this is a time now to hear from God. I'm not going to tell you anything coming from God. I'm going to let you close your eyes and pray until you hear from God. And he said, if you want to hear from God, stay here until you hear from him. Don't go back to your dorms and don't go back to sleep without hearing from God. And I stayed there, not really expecting much, but we stayed there and we prayed for, I don't know how long it was. People were crying, going to sleep, doing their own thing. And then I finally did. I heard God's own voice. And what I heard was so simple. It was just, I love you. And that's what made me cry. Not the smoke machines, not the performances, not even all the preachers that happened through the whole time. Was just hearing God tell me that he loves me. Because being loved by other people, or even loving myself, it can't amount to the feeling that you feel when you know that you're being loved unconditionally by someone who knows you wholly. And when I was speaking to the guy I met at the one conference, we were just having a normal conversation outside of the session, and he was just rambling about saying whatever it was coming to his mind, and he's like, oh yeah, and I also heard from God, and he said he loves me. And I was like, what did you say? He's like, yeah, when we were praying, I heard from God, and he said to me that he loves me. And I was like, oh, me too. And I was like, okay, cool.
Amazing. It sounds like you guys had a great time. And I'm sure there's one next year again, right? Good stuff. So now those who missed out, next year's another chance. Last week we went away, right? And this week we're hearing what happened. So can I call Christoph, your team first? Who's giving feedback? Carol. Carol, just tell us where did you go?
Christoph, what was the name of the church? One line. City Hill. Okay, I couldn't remember that. Hi, everybody. I tell you what, I don't come from a church background, so this was like an unusual experience for me because I've never been away on a Mission Sunday thing. So that was quite unusual. And off we went to Pinetown, to the City Hill. And I was amazed because they also preach the kingdom. Wow. You know, you don't know what you're going to get there, but I found that. So anyway, and the pastor, his name's Douglas, Douglas. Lovely man. And I felt totally at home there. I felt like it was an extension of this church. So anyway, so he preached a sermon on what is your always. And I must admit, because it was in Afrikaans first, I didn't quite understand. Juno was there as well. We were trying to pick up on what the message was. And I wasn't quite sure what he was trying to get at first. But in the end, I realized that what he was trying to say was that there are mannerisms or behaviors that we have that we actually sometimes unaware that we do them. They're normal to us. But other people see them and they pick them up and they think, but you always do that. You know, and so the whole point of the thing was that for us, he sent us home with homework. We had to go and ask our family or our friends what our always was. And I did ask my daughter. She didn't want to tell me, so it must be quite bad. But anyway, how it impacted me, and I thought that was wonderful, was that, and I mean, maybe Christoph can remember the rest of the message, because that's the part that really came home to me, was I thought, okay, nobody wants to tell me what my always is, but I know somebody who always does things for me, and that's Jesus. So it impacted me in that I was praying to him, and I said, Lord, you're my shepherd, and you always make me lie down in green pastures. And you always give me good gifts. And I ended up reading the whole of that Psalm 23 to him in those terms of always, how he always looks after us, how he always cares about every detail of our lives, and how he just, we're precious to him. Every single one of us are very, very special to him. And if you haven't experienced him and the alwayses in your life, then maybe you should go and ask somebody, what's my always? But rather look to Jesus and let him tell you what your alwayses are, because he loves you. Okay.
Thanks, Carol. I was just thinking, my husband is quite a detail guy, so he would probably tell me after the service, you didn't even tell people, if they didn't know what happened last week, how they're supposed to know what's going on here today. So let me just quickly tell you, if you don't know, last week Sunday, we were 4 teams going to 4 different churches. So we didn't have church here, but we all went to different churches, sort of on a mission, getting to know people, building relationship. And we also had a team in Mozambique. But our next team, Karen, who's giving feedback from your guys. Mark. Okay, there's a few guys. So they went to Epangeni. Who's first? They're all shy.
I know. Come on. Come, Cliff.
Hi, everyone. It's a surprise to be here talking about Jesus, our Lord and Savior. I was so surprised to go with a mission last week, and found out God was saying, "Go and be fishers of men." Yeah, and when we went to Mpangeni, when we were at ladies, we were at Stuli's house and his family, and when we were praying with them, when we're done, we didn't know that the guy was still there, and it was late. He just come to for us to pray for him. He just said, "Please pray for me." Then Karen put her hand on his ears, and we stretch our hands to pray for him. And this guy, he don't hear properly. He don't talk properly. So when we were praying continuously, and there was big, massive wind, which surprised us all. It was like, this is God's wonders. And we just thank God for that, and we carry on praying for his God to carry on heal him completely. Yeah.
Well, our trip took an unexpected turn, and one thing I learned about God is to expect the unexpected. So we can plan as much as we like, but God always has his way. Just a few highlights. We had an absolute awesome time of bonding on the way up there to Mpangeni, and then for the guys, we went to St. Lucia, and had a great time up there. We had a meal together while watching rugby, which was fantastic as well. Some more male bonding going on there. Even though we lost, we didn't really lose. Because actually, just before we did that, Mark said, let's go and just evangelize on the street. I haven't done that for like 35, 40 years. From the Invis days, we used to go out every 3 days a week and just evangelize on the streets. So it was absolutely awesome. And I don't know, I picked a bunch of Dutch tourists, students, drinking and smoking, and I walked up to them and I thought, my word, what have I done here? Anyway, my approach was totally different to my normal approach. I used to just go in and just, tell them about Jesus and they need to get saved. But this time I found myself, I just said, Lord, what do I do? And I just went and I just felt to just get to know them, introduce myself and all their names, and they were Dutch names and all that. And I remembered them, which was amazing. I don't normally remember names. But it was just an absolutely amazing time. Just get to know them. And only right at the end, I gave them a very brief testimony about having a personal relationship with Jesus. And then they all left. But we all had wonderful experiences, which you'll hear about. So for me, that was the highlight. Sorry, these phones don't stay on. Yeah, and then we went to Solid Ground Church, and it was absolutely amazing. We observed the kids' ministry. They said we could just come in and observe, which we did, and we picked up some wonderful ideas. And it was really, really invigorating, and we just loved the experience we had there. And then, of course, on the way home, all of us in the car, we had amazing, absolutely great testimonies and stimulating discussions on our journey home. So it was a wonderful and absolutely awesome adventure. Thank you.
I said to the guys before we went on mission, and I'll say this every time before we go to mission, is ask God to break something off you, or ask God for a revelation or something. And before we left, we just prayed quickly, and I said, just ask God. And it was interesting. It always is different, I think, because God works differently all the time. And it's actually just in this last week that I've realized God's answered two massive questions for me in the lead up to this mission. The first was, I've been wrestling for many years around home group, and especially the consistency of home groups when especially with young families with kids. And I've asked myself, how does this, because we know what it's like to have young children and the pressure puts. And so often I see people then lose rhythm and connection because they go through the season of children. And I've been asking God, surely that we've got to find a way around that. And we had a Wednesday meeting before we went on mission. And from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, we said 1 hour, we're just going to pray together. And what I saw, and all the kids sat in the room with us, we prayed, we all shared, we had a cup of coffee, the kingdom came, and we were done by 7 o'clock. And I thought, wow, that is completely possible with children. 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And it was just an answer. And I thought to myself, isn't that incredible? We decide to go on mission for Jesus, and the moment you go and step outside, God answers questions. And I think that's for human beings, that is the process of growing with God, is He answers our questions that we don't understand. The second question I've pondered for many years is, what does it look like in our context to turn a city upside down? When Jesus said, and we read it in the prayer meeting today, He went from village to village, and He preached the gospel. And I said, how do we do that in our context? Like, how does that actually happen? Do we take a soapbox, put it on the corner there, stand on our soapbox, preach? Do we don't have town squares like Elon Musk says, Twitter's the new town square. Is it all online? But you know what? 40 minutes before that rugby game, we did want to watch a rugby game. We said, we're going to go down the streets of St. Lucia, and we're going to preach, and we're going to share the kingdom. And what God has shown me, is that we just need to ask God to be led by the Spirit, to love people and tell those people what they need to hear from God. And if you'll do that, the Holy Spirit will put the words in your mouth. And I tell you, in 40 minutes, I had 5 encounters, 3 significant, 1 very significant. Simply, I saw one lady, she was wearing black, and I just had the words good and evil, and that's how it started. And I started just speaking about good and evil and the fact that all of us have experienced some kind of evil, some kind of bad. And what that happens is when bad things happen to us, our hearts get hard. We struggle to be intimate with people. And then she said, you know what? I was married to a murderer overseas, and I tried to commit suicide. And I know Jesus, and I know His grace, but I still go and I'm drinking and I'm smoking. And I just said to her, I just want to tell you, I'm glad you know Jesus, but there's so much more that He wants to do with you. And I could see she was going in a hard time, and I could just watch the goosebumps go all the way up her arm, and then she just broke in floods of tears. And I just got the moment, in one moment, just to encourage her and say, hey, God's with you. Just knock, and He'll answer, and He's with you. So 2 major questions answered. I'm massively excited. Our prayer meeting today, it's incredible. We come back without being in church for a while, for a couple of weeks, because I was away as well. And we just were praying about the harvest is ripe. And I tell you what, the harvest is ripe. People are desperate just for us to go and share his love with them.
Okay, so when the list came up, we saw One City Church that Warren and Melanie were going to. And so we went and we approached them. We said, we're coming with you guys. And then they said, wait a minute. We've just got the opportunity to go to Mozambique, so you're going. So I waited right till the end of the week before I contacted the pastor's wife, Lee and Bronwyn. And no one contacted me. So I phoned her and she said, oh, how many of it's in your team? So I said, just the Vessels clan. It's my husband and I and our 2 kids. But it was such an appointment with Jesus. And it was just for us. So what they do, when we were in the cell group with Mel and Warren, we always spoke about how do we get out there? How do we reach people? And what does it practically look like? And they have like a feeding scheme. So that was what attracted us. So Bronwyn says to us, just come at 2:30. The church starts at 4. 2:30, we go and we do the feeding. We come back, we pray from about 3 to 3:30, and then we get ready for our service. So there we go, expecting nothing. And we meet at the church. It's on Bamboo Lane in Pinetown. And she's got 8 loaves of bread made into sandwiches, this huge bread tray. And I was like, oh, she's never going to get rid of that. And this huge bucket that Sean had to carry full of tea. So we walk, it's like 2 roads over. We go to Old Main Road, and you see all these car dealerships. We go past a car, second-hand car, 980,000 Rand. And right next to it is this little concrete wall, and all these men and women sitting on it waiting for their lunch. So they know that the church always comes about 2:45 and gives them sandwiches and tea. And it was such an eye-opener. So Chloe and Seth are carrying the bread, and so they're handing it out to all these grown men and women. They're just sitting. And apparently after COVID, most of them lost their jobs. Because I said, do they work here? Like, where are they? They said, no, they just sleep outside the car dealerships because they've all lost their jobs. Or they're drug addicts, or they're just terrible stories. Anyway, so they're all sitting waiting, and Seth and Chloe start handing out the sandwiches, and Seth comes to me. He's got like a real justice, strong point of justice. He says, Mom, I'm getting so irritated. That man's hiding the sandwiches behind the newspaper, and he keeps calling me to give him another sandwich. And I said, can you imagine, Seth, that you don't know where your next sandwich is coming from? He's hiding sandwiches because he's starving. And we gave them tea. And look, you've got to have boundaries in this ministry, because the lady who came with us, she was like, hey, Blessing, you've had a sandwich, and hey, Lolo, you've done something, like she had to, because they do. They want to take, they can't believe they're getting food, they're starving. So we walk back, we thought, wow, that's like incredible. So we go back and then we meet the pastor and his wife. And this man, his name's Lee, has such an amazing heart. Just like he just sees them through Jesus' eyes. And he said to us, this really hit me. He said, if your church on your corner, the building, just disappears, would the community even notice? Or just the people that go to the church? Because then it might as well be a tennis club. And that hit me. I was like, whoa. And when this church was in my school, I wasn't coming to this church, but we had a spring walk, and Glenwood gave us free cappuccinos, and they bought all the chairs for our hall. And so I know this church has a heart for the community, So now it's just us that we have to get involved and get out there. And so while he's talking, he says to us when we leave, the pastor, he says, can you guys just pray for me? He said, this is going to sound like a strange request. Now, he looks like he's an accountant. They both have secular jobs, the husband and wife. But he's so smart and in his little suit, not a suit, like a smart shirt. And he says, guys, I want to spend one night on the street with these guys so I can relate to them. So Sean's like with a tent, like no, just like me. just me alone, just sleeping next to these guys. And it just really showed me his heart. He just had such a heart. He just, because he's just amazing. So there's one man in his church that he called to meet us, and he said, this guy used to be a drug addict on the street, and he came to us. He said, I want to get clean. So he got clean, got a job. He's renting his own little place now, and he goes with them and ministers to the people on the street. So he said that's his vision, that he rescues one through the Lord, and they then go out and minister. So that means like you, one person, you say, oh, I can only get to my little, that's fine, because if those people then go out, then you're touching a whole lot of people. So, yeah, it was just like really inspiring. But I mean, I cried from worship to the end. It was like ridiculous. It was like, so what had happened was, you know, life gets you down, paying bills, I've got problems at work, and I just wasn't trusting God for any miraculous thing. And when we went there and I saw like lives were being changed through Jesus, I was like, oh, it was just like a real like eye-opener, and we all felt the same, which was really amazing. So Sean said he would only say something if they asked him, because what they did was they're in the book of Romans at the moment, and they said, no, we're not going to do that, because you're here visiting, we want to have like a Thanksgiving service. So they'd asked 3 people to talk about how God had changed their lives. So they call up these 3 people. It ended up 12 people came forward. Everyone was running forward just to say what God had done. So it was like just such an amazing time where, and it benefited them, because I don't think they knew what God was doing. You know, they just had got into this pattern, and they were so blessed, because she messaged me the next day and she said, wow, it was just such an exciting time to hear how people were thanking God for what had happened. And their daughter went up. This really touched me. And she said, you know, so they started off in one city in Westville, and Westville wanted to branch out to Pinetown. And they said, can't you have your cell group on a Sunday night just at this church? So they did that, and it became church. And their daughter, she said, she was a teenager, and she comes up and she says, you know, I was kind of like dragged along. This wasn't my ministry, it was my parents' ministry. And she said, now I can see what God's doing in lives, that I can't wait to get here on a Sunday. I can't wait. And I was like, wow, it's incredible, you know. So, yeah, it was really an amazing time. And then at the end, he says to us, well, do you guys, our visitors, do you want to come pray for us? Or do you want to come say something? So Sean had a time to testify, and then I wanted to pray with them. And it was so cute. Like all these youngsters came behind them and held them like this, you know, while we were praying. It was just like church. It was just so beautiful. Everyone was just involved. And so then we prayed for them, and it was just such a beautiful time. And I know that they were blessed and we were blessed. And so we get in the car, and I said, guys, it's like we've been on a mission trip. We've been to Swaziland. And I said, I feel I've got that same feeling. Like it's just like amazing. And I think that's what the leadership wanted, you know. So yes, we called to go to other nations. Some were lucky enough to go to Mozambique. But for the rest of us, it's in your backyard. A missionary in your backyard. And I mean, Pinetown is not far away. And I actually think we could do this in Glenwood. So it was just such a blessing. So thank you. We enjoyed it so much.
And then we had a team who went to Richmond. I think we're not going to share. We're just going to show a video quickly. The Richmond one.
For me, visiting the Richmond congregation of Pastor Luke and his wife Promise, there in Richmond, that was such a privilege for us to be able to go there.
It was really beautiful to see how the different people so openly danced. You know, the Gogos had their turn, and the children, the youth, and then the men had a turn. Also, when it was time to pray silently, or rather alone, I was really humbled and quite taken back how openly they were praying, just in their zone, you know, their congregation, and praying so aloud and without any inhibitions at all. They just let their hearts go. That was so humbling.
For me, Richmond was really like going back to basics, or going back to what's important. And that is, just worshiping God wherever we are in spirit and in truth. I feel so encouraged just by watching the young people and what they do, or what they're doing. Even just the church and the way that they worship. I was telling you this, like just how dance is just such a form of worship, that they sing with all they are, they pray with all they are, they prophesy with all they are. It's just good to be reminded of that.
For me, something that I've experienced in that church is just, especially during worship, was just like a freedom to celebrate what Jesus Christ has done for us on the cross.
It was lovely to see how the whole congregation, young and old, got involved and enjoyed themselves without any inhibitions. We were also humbled by their hospitality and the effort that they put in to make us feel welcome.
We just felt so welcome. They were actually waiting for us outside. They welcomed us from the church outside. On the outside, they've got this little blue building, and you cannot miss that church at all.
I was also so humbled by our greeting when he stood outside and welcomed us in, Pastor Luke, and the spread that they put on afterwards, and the way the ladies all just, tended to us and made sure we were all eating and having coffee or tea.
Really, really loved also being able to be in a different team and connecting with people we don't usually have time to connect with, so that was great.
I am just so extremely grateful and that I had that experience, and that I was with the members from Citygate that I was with. It was just the most beautiful experience that I will forever, ever hold dear in my heart.
Okay, so now until 5 o'clock, the Mozambique team can give their feedback. Toby? Some people are getting nervous. So
I'll go first and keep it short and set the tone. We know we've got some people. Come, Lucien, let's go. So we went to Mozambique. It was really amazing. A friend of mine gave me a word at the men's camp, which was quite an intimidating word, and it didn't really have relevance to me then. But driving in the car on the way to the border post, it exploded in my head. And so for me, that trip really was, God sometimes talks to you, but it's not for then, it's for another time. And it's always good to go to Mozambique. The trip was challenging in many ways. We hit some real speed bumps, but God really came through. So I think for me, the lesson was, it doesn't matter what Satan does, God restores. And God will sort it out. And actually, you can't do it in your own strength. Some of the highlights were really just, for the first time in 17 years, we always go to pour ourselves out. And for the first time in 17 years, those churches gave to us. And you'll hear some of the stories today. You can see some of the stories today. It was incredible, that they gave us financial offerings which we could sow into the churches in Tofu. It really was remarkable. Something shifted on this trip. And it was amazing. Rue and I, God gave Rue a picture, and she came running down the stairs to tell me what the picture was, and I already knew what the picture was because God had given me that picture separately in my quiet time, and I hadn't had a chance to talk to her about it. And so for me, it really was this thing of oneness and just really relooking at a perspective around the people in Mozambique. They really have been struggling. We got to hand out Bibles. We got to preach the gospel. We actually went into people's homes, and we had dinner with them in their houses, in their villages. It was incredible and so fulfilling. And I mean, even just the one testimony which is radical is that Richard and Ruth, who are not here today, so they came with their whole family from Glenridge, and their neighbor, who's not saved, has met somebody on Facebook called Mimi and had dropped off a parcel and said, will you find Mimi in Tofu, which is about the size of Hillcrest, and just give Mimi this parcel. So Ruth just felt bad, and she didn't want to say no. And so she took the parcel, knowing full well she's never going to meet Mimi, and put it in the car, and off we went. And so the first night they said, Ruth said we had a debrief, and she said, look, I've got this parcel for somebody called Mimi. Is there, if anybody meets anybody called Mimi, just let me know. First night in Tofu, that we actually did some ministry, I randomly divided everybody up, and Richard and Ruth went off into the bush and went to somebody's home group, and it was the home of Mimi. And so they had this gift that this lady in South Africa had sent for Mimi. And let me tell you what, the guys will tell you, three baptisms, 3 lives given, just out of that one home group of Mimi. So God really does move powerfully on these trips.
Thanks, Toby. He's just told my story. My thing before I went was, Lord, I want to hear your voice. I need to hear your voice. And right from before we went, I heard God speak to me. I almost didn't hear it because I was so busy shopping. And it was everything that I heard from God. He wove into the story of going to Marakweng, going to the church there, what the ladies' conference, what happened there, and going on to Tofu. And really, one of the big things for me was gifts and unintentional gifts. And God spoke to me when we got back, and because I was wrestling with something, and I can't tell you, it's too long. But if you want to know, I'll tell you later. And he said to me, just look at this. Somebody gave a gift. That gift went, and all that happened, we went to see the children at the school, and then she invited us to her place to have lunch. And at her place, her brother was there, and he wanted to be baptized, and we drew water out of the well, and it was that song, Isaiah's song, that we played all the way up to Tofu, that was just playing out. It was such a prophetic song of what God was going to do. And I don't know, there's just so much. There is just so much. You can't actually say, but yes, out of one gift, 3 baptisms, 3 lives changed, 3 people received a Bible so that they could actually have a relationship with Jesus. And so, he said to me, so your unintentional gift, which, by the way, was a pair of my best pair of sandals that unintentionally got given to Benita. So God said to me, he said, that story about the gift and what happened, he said, those shoes, and he said, I want you to tell Bonita, tell her that yellow, and all I saw there was yellow sandals, and everybody I saw with yellow sandals on, I told them, that's about joy, that God is going to send you to the people to preach the gospel, and you're going to do it with great joy. And so it was yellow sandals that was given to Benita, and the word to her is, God is going to send you out, and you are going to preach the gospel, and you are going to do it with great joy. So, yeah.
So our story is a little bit different. Mission was always a great idea until it actually is your turn to go. I was like, I love mission. I want to go on mission, but, I'm going to sit this one out. Warren's going to go. And then God gave me the opportunity to go as well. And it took a little bit of time for me to get excited because we were waiting for his passport, and because I really wanted us to experience our first mission together. And, so I got excited after Marakweng, if I'm honest. Tofu was amazing. We made a lot of connections there, and I wasn't sure going into this what exactly God had for me. Like, what is my purpose over there? But now looking back, I realized that I made connections with a couple of people who weren't necessarily local people from Tofu. But because Tofu is a tourist destination, there's lots of expats living there from South Africa, and there's expats from all over the world. And I happened to make contact with two people. I made contact with two people that I'm still in touch with, and they are not necessarily Christian yet. The one comes from Scotland, and she is not a Christian. I actually met her at church when she was bringing two of the locals that she was, that God had placed on her heart, but she doesn't know it's God yet. It was our last Sunday, and we were sitting in Assemblies of God church, and she's the other white girl that walked in. So I automatically went to sit next to her. Her name's Yvonne. And she was like, yeah, she's not religious, she says. So I said, well, neither am I. I'm not religious either. I have a relationship with Jesus. There's a huge difference. And she's like, okay. Turns out that she is an air hostess. So she works a month and then she takes 6 weeks off with the money that she's made in her job. And she comes to Tofu, and God has placed 2 boys on her heart that she looks after. And I said, well, basically, you're a missionary too. And she's like, no. I said, yes, you are. And so she hasn't had anybody praying for her. So that if that was just one person that God put on my path to start praying for, it was totally worth it. And then also we went to the market, and when we were at the market, everybody's worshiping on the inside, and as the tourists come in and they're like, ooh, what's going on? Ooh, Jesus. Oh no, they're like, beep, 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 out of here. I realized that, you see, we've got lots of work to do, guys. We need to tell people about Jesus. And Tofu has made me on fire to tell people about Jesus.
So I've written something down. So Mariqueng was very dusty, and it was proper camping. When I mean wild camping. But the church was amazing. They had people coming up dancing. They actually gave my wife and all the ladies these beautiful dresses. And you know what? That's surprising, because we came there to give them Bibles, but they still gave us something. That was showing. And these people, their building has no walls. It's got a tin roof. That's their church. So things like this make you really sit up and look and think. People have nothing, but they still give, even when we're giving. That's really meant a lot to me, actually. Tofu was beautiful. Tofu is a real holiday place that no one knows about yet. Very beautiful. But the one amazing thing I found in Tofu is the marketplace. So where they're doing business, their business, selling and trying to make a living, they also do church. Which, that's kind of what our mission is. We want to relate the two together. In the Western world, that's actually foreign. We want to do church, and then on every other day we want to do work, separate. But they do it together, which I thought was very beautiful. And one of the leaders is in Tonia, so I went to dinner at Tonia's house with Sean. And that was actually quite cool. His house is about the size of my bedroom. And he's got a TV, and he's got a little bedroom hidden away that you don't see. And in this house, it's got a little bit of electricity. He has his neighbor's kid coming in to watch the news so he can do his homework. And they just cooked for us, and it was brilliant. It was amazing, actually. That's my story. The fun part was I caught a tuna with Sean.
Amen. So for me, I knew it was the right thing to go on mission, but my head and my whole sense of what was going on with school and that before the term broke up, I think I was in a trap. I was like really just on some kind of a rat race. And but nonetheless, so we decided to go. And I think it's amazing how God works in the sense that I think He's something personal that was for each one, where God wanted to meet and to reach us. But then as a team as well, the way that God worked things, like Toby was saying, I'm sure for him it was quite a headache, some of the stuff that had arisen, and we could see it visually on his demeanor. Yeah, God challenged him a lot. I mean, we had Richard who got so sick that he actually had to be hospitalized, stuff like that. And yeah, people were thrown out of their comfort zone. Like at the place we stayed at Maragweng, where it was real camping, but it's different camping because you're camping on sand. But then you soon realize actually the whole of Mozambique basically is just sand, sand, and more sand. Like it's just endless sand. I'm sure the sea was in that space long before going back to the prehistoric whatever history of Mozambique. Yeah. So, but nonetheless, so God works in the way that He does, and I think I was still quite stiff and starchy at like the first few days, and. Yeah, kind of trapped still, but God had His way of getting me out of it. But I think the blessing is coming back and to have my perspective realigned. So it was really a wonderful experience of kind of living in the Acts of the Apostles, the book of Acts. So Toby didn't, as a leader, decide, right, here's the itinerary, and this is the plan of action that we're going out for these number of days. Everything was just so organic. And the way that it worked was just phenomenal. That thing of coming face to face with people, not necessarily to go and preach the gospel, because that wasn't what I was aiming to do in each encounter of coming into contact with people, but rather just to observe, perhaps, engage, and I think they could see then, and I really do believe that we can spread a message and a gospel or get an openness to have opportunity to do so when we just humble ourselves and present ourselves and then let God take it from there, whatever might unfold. So really we saw wonderful things happen, like they're saying baptisms, and it's just awesome. The openness that God created. You know, no man, the scripture tells us that no man can come to the Father unless he draws. They are drawn by the Spirit of God. And there's also this sense that I have of that scripture which says, I will build my church and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. And of course, being there, we got some of the understanding that Toby, amongst others who had been going out to Tofu 17 or some number of years ago, and then to see the fruit of it these many years down the line, and to know that the fire that God ignites, and it's going to blaze, it's going to burn, and it's going to bring holiness, it's going to bring righteousness. Yes, there are difficulties that we face, whether it's out in Tofu, Maragweng, or right back here in Durban home, but let's put ourselves out there to do what God wants us to do. Amen.
So definitely the mission trip is a way that I'd like to do church. Like Lucy's already said, it's like living in the days of the Acts of the Apostles. In the past, apparently the mission trips were largely based within the churches, and this trip was one of a difference, one of its kind, in that, we did church out there just like Jesus did. He did preach in synagogues, but he also walked the streets, he preached in the marketplace, he went to people's homes, and he spoke to people directly. And that's what I thoroughly enjoyed. I love the very personal interaction with people, and just to be able to see how people would respond when they realize that Jesus has seen them. Like it's been mentioned, when you realize that Jesus loves you, you don't have to minister anymore. I'll just relate one story. So we visited a hospital, the local hospital, which is something small. There was one patient admitted at the time, and she was in labor, 23-year-old, Nayami. And so we just loved on her, massaged her, prayed with her, and with her mom and her gran who were there. And then we left. But before we did, the sister asked, what's my husband's name? I thought, that's a bit strange. So then when I told it's Lucian, she said, oh, well, the baby's going to be called Luciano because it's a boy. So we left. The next morning, we bought a piece of fabric for this mom, and we wanted to just pop by and go and give her the fabric and see the baby and her, and expecting them to maybe be going home by that afternoon. That day, we were at Mimi's home, and we were just not preaching, not ministering. We were just doing life, making matapo. We stamped the nuts from scratch, and we had to mulch the leaves and pick the coconut. We didn't climb though, and like grind it, and well, everything was from scratch. But around the table, cooking, the ministry was being done, just telling stories. Mimi telling us her story, us telling our stories, and the brother was standing in the background. And next minute he was asking to be baptized, and out came the bucket, as we heard, and we drew the water from the well, and he got baptized. And we had lunch, and then we was rushing to go and get to the hospital. And we were even thinking, like, maybe we shouldn't go, or she's probably gone home by now, but we wanted to leave the gift. And just before we were going to leave, we started chatting to Mimi's sister, and before long, she was crying and wanting to be baptized. And so now we couldn't really get to the hospital. And all this was happening, but eventually we got to the hospital. And as we drove in, the ambulance was about to leave. So this young lady is now 36 hours or more later, had not delivered yet. She was in trouble. Things had gone wrong. And isn't that just Jesus? He comes to each of us at the point of our need. And so even in that we pulled up at that time, and we were able to pray with her again. And then when they left to the hospital, we were able to pray with her grandmother, who was very anxious and crying. And 2 hours later, we got word that mom and baby were well. She delivered by cesarean section. And even though I'm not telling you something that might sound like, oh, wow, miraculous, but God met her on her journey. And it's just wonderful that as we've heard all the stories, that's what it's about. Doing life with people, meeting them at the point of their need. And that's what Jesus did as he walked the streets when he was here on earth. And that's what I think we all want to do, and we're all excited about doing now. And so baby was born, and it was a girl, and her name is Luciana.
So, we actually had big celebrations. Lucian and Mel celebrated their 25th wedding anniversary while we were there. And, I think just to encourage you, the prayers carried us through. The Bibles were incredible gifts. And when we go, each and every one of you goes as well. And so we've left the best for last. Noah and Jordan, come up. No, you're trying to hide there. Come, boys. Let's go. Chop, chop. So Noah fed us regularly with fish.
Hello, I'm Noah. I didn't really be expecting to share today, but mission was really cool. We had a lot of fun times, like just fishing and surfing and running around on the beach and laughing and listening to music. But we also had a lot of like good connection times with the people up there. It was super sick to see new cultures and just go to all these different churches. Every day was a new experience. We had some proper times where me and Sean just got thrown into the deep end. No, we're going as a team, but now our team's splitting up. Here's a new translator. No, we're going to this church here. Half your team's staying here. This guy can kind of translate for you. Everything's going to be fine. So that was kind of the whole trip. Everything was just going like this, but it was great, all in all. So, yeah.
Hello, guys. My name is Jordan, and the Mozambique trip was actually amazing. Not just because of what God did in each one of us here and the locals. It's also the lessons He taught us through everyday things that we did, like, say, going for a surf. You would be in the water with big waves, and you would like the waves, but you wouldn't appreciate them until those big waves went away, and there was only these small waves that you had to ride. And then it just reminded me that you have all these things at home, like these commodities, like a toilet or running water or even hot water. And in Mozambique, you have to live with cold water or maybe even a long drop or maybe even no water at all. So it just is really humbling experience, and yeah, it's nice to see the locals have a smile on their face with whatever little they have. So yeah, it was amazing.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to all the teams for your feedback, your effort, your time. Thank you for going. You know, I think if you can listen to all the teams, one thing they said, they were out of their comfort zones. And let's do that more locally also. Just quickly, Pinashe and Chloe, just quickly run up here. Quickly. They're just quickly going to give us one sentence each of the one conference. I don't know, they should also share before I'm in trouble. Come. They have profound endings for us. And then we just want, I don't know where Ethan and Shanae is. If you see they have a baby now, it's not just a boob anymore. So please greet them, hug them softly. So go, Chloe.
I'm not really sure what to say. I really have nothing to say. It was just an amazing experience, and I came back wanting to allow God to speak through me, like allowing Him to use me whichever way He wanted, not me, like Him before me. So it was just an amazing experience.
Okay, I was not expecting this, but what I can say about one conference is it was amazing, and it was actually fun and exciting to see young people like me, worshiping, and it really like touched my heart too, because I'm a kind of a guy who's like scared, who's like insecure. During the one conference, I like started lifting up my hands during worship. I just didn't care about what people are gonna say about me, and that's one of the things I've been battling with, like worshiping freely. And one conference really gave me courage to be strong, and I'm working on it, and I hope I'll continue growing. Amen.
Okay. God bless you, keep you, make His face to shine upon you, and give you peace. Have a good week, everyone. Enjoy.